Well, welcome, 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 and thank you so much for joining. This is going to be about an hour long, this workshop. It's a workshop very much to introduce the whole concept of heart healing and how incredibly powerful and beautiful that space can actually be. So if you girls are coming in, I'll just keep admitting those people that come in. Hi, Lyndall. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we're just getting started on our very first week. This is a series of 10 workshops that I want to do August, September, finishing up in October, to really talk and speak into this whole issue of heart healing. So I am Miriam Smout, ACCA Redemption Mama. That was something that really came to my spirit a few years ago. The reason being I'm a mother of 5, grandmother now of 1 and another one on the way. I have experienced a lot in my life where there was loss, and my heart became to really redeem what was lost and get back some of that lost stuff. If you can identify with me on that, then tell me in the chat. If you're live on Facebook, go, heck yeah, hands up, whatever. It's just interesting how we can be so isolated. We can think we just have to do what we're doing on our own, and it's not the truth. So for me, I very much have a heart to help battle-weary women. I was one of them, still am sometimes, to really heal deep hurts and reclaim their personal power, unlock their God-given destiny. And I do that by intuitive, spirit-led healing and teaching, very much wanting to not just see women healed, but also see women really informed and able to, sorry, I'm just checking, is Facebook happy with me? On my phone here. So that's my heart and my passion, very much to be led by that still small voice, that spirit-led voice, and teach and learn and grow in this whole heart healing space. So as I said, I'm a mum of 5. I kind of unraveled around 45 years of age, kind of hit a spot at that point where there were some cycles, there were some repeats, some patterns, some stuff that kept happening for me, and I just couldn't seem to manage. I really lost the plot. I was crying a lot. I had pendulum swings, you know, one extreme to the other, and man, I was going like this. Hard to find balance. I found myself with some volcanic eruptions, you know, emotions coming up that I had no idea what to do with, and they either vomited them out over everybody else, and they just seemed to be unmanageable. I became really exhausted, really tired, just didn't seem to matter how much sleep I had, I was still waking up a pretty tired woman. So it's unsustainable, and it became unsustainable for me. So that's very much the space that I've come from. I learned a lot in that time, as we all do in those struggles and those real big challenges. And as I was learning and beginning to realize that there was some deep stuff in me, some deep wounds that I'd never processed and I'd never really allowed myself to get healing for, I was very, very challenged. And so I went on a journey with some friends. We formed a bit of a group. We actually really knitted together, and we kind of learnt on the fly a lot about what this emotional healing thing was all about. 15 odd years ago, I'm 60 now, it wasn't talked about a lot. It wasn't something that was embraced or understood. In fact, a lot of people thought we were pretty weird. We thought we were pretty weird as well, but it was so much hunger in us to bridge the gap, you know, this gap between, for me as a faith-based woman, what I was seeing and reading and believing was possible, and what I was living and what I was hoping for. There was a big gap there, and I was very hungry to bridge that gap. So that's where the journey kind of started. Now, as I began to lean in and allow some pretty uncomfortable, challenging things to come to the surface, I started to learn about some principles of how life can be. And so I wanted to share, like, this is the basis. I guess this forms a real basis for me of what I believe and how I work. So I would love to share with you a very brief video. This video comes from the project that I've been working on called the Beautiful You Project. It's not beautiful on the outside, it's the beautiful you on the inside, and very much the inside out kind of working on the inside, diving into what's deep down so that the inside is reflected on the outside, rather than having to, you know, add another layer of makeup or another layer of whatever to try and cover up. Going inside and bringing that healing to that inside space. So the outside reflects what's on the inside, and we don't have to work so hard at covering it up. So this principle for me is called living in alignment. It's just a very short 3-minute video. I felt that that would be the best way to give some insight into the basis of what I do. So I'm just going to find it in my computer here. Now, where's it gone? Sorry about this. It was right there. And very interesting. It's disappeared, but that doesn't surprise me. I'll quickly just jump back. There it is. See if I can find it. Da-dum-dum-dum. Toop, toop. I don't need that one. Oh, this is annoying. So where it was there before, it's disappeared off my screen right now. Sorry. Let's see if we can dig it up. Why? Interesting. Well, I will, without you being able to see it, it's going to be a bit annoying. Let me try this one more time and see if it will come up for me. Mystery of mysteries. Not always a surprise though, is it, when you're working on things that need to be shared? It's there. So I'm going to just call it up freshly again, see if it'll come. So this video is all about what I learned. What I learned very much in terms of living the 3 parts of me in a really healed and whole space. Those parts were my body, my soul, my spirit. And these are the parts of me that I feel are very critical to having that alignment, living in that alignment in my body, in my soul, and in my spirit. As I was learning about this and as I was getting insight and understanding, I started to really see how when I come out of alignment, oh my gosh, it really impacts my life massively. So this video won't work. There it is. Got it. We'll just enlarge that. And yeah, so it's just a few minutes, this video, but it will give you some context, particularly about where I'm coming from. So let's go.
Hi there, you're ready to get started on Module 3 and Lesson 1. This module is called Living in Alignment. In this first lesson, you're going to see what living in alignment looks like and what it means. You'll have a good overview of the concept after this. Then in the following lessons in Module 3, you'll look at each part in depth to get a clear understanding of what they represent and how they might apply in your life. When I was learning about this some years ago, a picture came to me and it helped me to get a grip on what living in alignment looked like. I saw a plumb line. A plumb line is an ancient tool used by builders to make sure they're building a straight line. It consists of a piece of string with a weight on the bottom so it pulls down firmly and hangs in a vertical line. The weight would normally have a pointed tip on the bottom, so that point would determine the centre of gravity or create a centre of balance or a reference point so that the straight wall could be built. This image became the basis for my concept of understanding living in alignment. A building that is not built straight is most likely to collapse or at least crack and become dangerous to the inhabitants. Same in life. When you're not living in alignment, cracks will appear in your life. And at the very worst, a collapse of some form is very likely. Can you see the importance of living in alignment? So what does living in alignment look like for you? It looks like this. Your three parts, your body, your soul, and your spirit need to line up and come into alignment with each other. That means your spirit is directing your soul, and your soul is directing your body, and your body is happy, healthy, and well because this alignment supports the best life that you can live. Being out of alignment can happen because many small things and some enough to tip you out of alignment happen on a day-to-day basis. These things don't have to be big deals. Or if it is a big thing that comes up for you, it will definitely tip you out of alignment. After a while, though, the more of you that has come out of alignment, the worse you can feel and the harder it can be to get back into alignment. When one of these three parts of you comes out of alignment, then life gets complicated, messy, and, well, just out of alignment. I'm sure you can recognise this feeling. As you learn to recognise this in your life, the quicker you can deal with it and work out where the problem is taking you out of alignment. You'll learn some strategies to get back into alignment in future modules. Can you see the power in knowing about this? The power in being able to detect this and rectify it as soon as possible? This concept has changed my life, and I want it to become transformational for you in your life too. It might take a little bit of practice to get this, but you have lots more mentoring sessions where we can work on.
All right, I'm going to stop there because you don't need to know about all of that. That's the principle of life that I feel I'm really called to live. It's a principle of living in alignment. You know, we've heard it maybe spoken about in the past. Did you notice the part that was coming out of alignment? It's the part for me that always is the bit that comes out of alignment, my soul. So that part is my mind, my will, my emotions, my thoughts, my desires, the choices I have. That's the realm where things seem to come out of alignment and they seem to fall apart. That's the space, that's the place that I've found critical for me to manage. And I found that that's the space where the heart healing really needs to take place, in that soulish realm, in that soul part of us. So when my mind, when my feelings, when my emotions are being well managed, it's less likely for me to come out of alignment. But of course, life happens all the time, every day. Things come up, curveballs get landed, and before you know it, you are struggling to stay in that place of being aligned. So look, these workshops are going to be very much about learning about that space of the heart healing space that can help us stay in alignment, that heart healing spot where the wounds sit, where the hurts, where all of that anxiety, rejection, all of these things, abandonment, they just sit and they land in that space. And once they're there, if we don't pay attention to it, if we ignore it, then it's really at our peril. And it was for me as well. When you ignore it, you're ignoring some physical warning signs and you're ignoring some emotional warning signs. And for me, I was ignoring a lot. Some of the things that started to manifest in my body were incredibly mysterious things that when I went to the doctor for, didn't seem to have any actual basis for me to be sick. There was nothing wrong. They were finding nothing wrong with me. However, I was struggling emotionally. I was struggling physically. I was struggling to speak. My voice was getting, really attacked. I was losing my voice. I was getting repeated cycles of sickness, like almost every month for a year. Now, without realizing it at the time, it was just me not being in alignment. And so I needed to really bring some healing to me. How to do that, I had no idea, but I want to share with you some of the process that and the journey that I've been on. I want to encourage you to step into this for yourself, and I want this to be something that is duplicatable and learnable for anyone, and I believe it is. So I will be inviting some of the women that I've supported on journeys over the last 20 odd years. I've been mentoring women for a long time now. And I want, they are willing, some of them are willing to come on and share their story and share some of the exciting processes they've been on to experience that heart healing in their own life. But just to give you some insight, I want to share a couple of stories, if that's okay. The first story is about actually a mum who came with her little boy. He was about 8 or 9 at the time. He had been the happiest child, really happy little boy. But around this time of 8 or 9, he hit depression. At such a young age, he became incredibly depressed, really sad, just seemed to have lost his luster for life, his zest for life, and his mum was really worried about him. Now, what happened in that process was we felt that there was something to go back into the heart healing space that was even before he was born, because life actually doesn't just start at the day you're born. Life starts the day you're conceived. And as a faith-based woman, I think life starts even before that, because we're known and we're created even before we come into this world. So when we were working with him, we felt to go back through his conception and his time in utero. It was an amazing experience. It was actually one of the first times that we had done this. And as I said, we were learning on the fly. We were desperate to try and find ways to bring healing because we believed it was possible, but we didn't have any grid or frame of reference at the time for figuring it out. So it was very much experimental and just learning to really listen to that voice, that still small voice, and be obedient to it. So we went back to with him, and we said to him, let's ask your spirit and the Holy Spirit to really show you what you need to know. And so from conception, we asked, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm really happy. Great. We progressed through. We got to about the 4th month. And he said, his whole demeanor changed. And he was like, no, somebody's yelling and screaming. He could actually hear this in his own spirit. Somebody's yelling and screaming, and it's awful. We progressed through until we got to about the 7th month. And then he said, oh, it's gone now. The noise is gone and I'm feeling okay. Now, this might sound really woo-woo and weird, but his mum was horrified and shocked, and she asked him to go out and play. And then she shared with us that it was her 5th child, and her husband had laid down that there were to be no more children. Here she was, after his rule, finding herself pregnant with her 5th child. Now, she didn't tell him until the 4th month. This is the story she told us. She was amazed at what had come out in this time of healing. In the 4th month, she told her husband that she was pregnant, and he went ballistic. She actually was very emotional as she shared how angry he was and how often the arguments occurred, and just him erupting because he was so upset. But she said it was around, a month or 2 before the little boy was born that the father came to a place of acceptance about it. Interestingly, it would seem that what happened for that little guy is that a wound on his heart was even landed in utero. And as we prayed into that, as we allowed the Spirit to lead us and give us insight and understanding about it, I met him actually only a few years ago. He's around 21 now. And honestly, the life and the light in him, I don't know if he remembers. I didn't ask, it wasn't appropriate, but it did my heart so much good, because this little boy who was very depressed had clearly had some incredible healing. And meeting him some years later was just, it did my heart so much joy to be able to see that healing. So that was a very incredible learning space for me at the time. Now, it's very intuitive, it's spirit-led, it's listening to that still small voice, because I believe that as created beings, we actually can connect with the Creator. We can connect with Him to get the insight, get the revelation, get the light to be shone on those places where those wounds sit on our hearts. Another lady, I'll share her story. She was a lady in about her 50s, and she had come because she was very, just finding that she couldn't be happy. She just couldn't seem to find happiness in anything. She'd actually had a new relationship start, somebody that she was very fond of, and felt that there was going to be something really special in this relationship, but she couldn't get joy in it. She couldn't step into it. And so we actually worked together. Now this lady wasn't a faith-based woman. She was very much just, your everyday lady who was hungry to really know what was going on at that deeper level. So together we just waited and we listened to that still small voice, because my belief is it doesn't matter what you believe, that still small voice is there, it's speaking, and it's got a voice, it's your heart voice. But we have learnt so much to shut it down and not listen to it, that when we don't listen to it, we actually block off that capacity for us to be healed. So we leant in and we listened, and we started to ask some questions. We're very much asking questions of this little girl that started to connect with this little girl that was in a situation of incredible abuse. In fact, quite awful abuse, that the father was very abusive physically, sexually, and emotionally, not just to the mother, but to the children, her and her sister as well. What that meant was this little girl started to really shut down. But in her shutting down, she started to get very angry with her mother, really angry that her mum wouldn't do anything about this. She wouldn't stand up for herself or stand up for the children. It was a very deep-rooted bitterness and grief and anger that she felt. What we did was talk to the little girl, and we asked the woman, I don't want to use names because that's not appropriate. We asked her to speak to the little girl. Now, what the grown woman knew was that life was going to be okay. She was incredibly successful entrepreneur, incredibly successful in so many ways. Relationally, no, relationships had not been successful. So she was very much wanting this relationship to be better than any others she'd experienced. But then she told me, I haven't spoken to my mum for 20 years. 20 years. That seemed to be the space where she really needed the healing. And so the grown woman started to speak to the little girl, and she was able to really let the little girl know that it was okay. Life was going to turn out okay, that she didn't need to hold on to that bitterness. She didn't need to hold on to that anger. She didn't need to hold on to the judgments and the hatred that she felt towards her mum. Incredibly, something lifted, and she said, something's lifted. I can't explain it. And of course, she probably couldn't, because she didn't have the language around what was going on. Why I'm sharing that story is because an hour after our time together, she called me and she said, Miriam, I've just been speaking to my mother for 1 hour. Makes me emotional to say it. Her first conversation with her mother for 1 hour. And she was able to release forgiveness. She was able to release the bitterness. And in doing that, she brought incredible healing into her heart. Sometime later, she let me know that weekly now she rings and talks to her mother, who's quite elderly, which is just so precious because, you know, in these latter years of her mother's life, there's a restored relationship. And that's the redemption that I'm hungry for, not just in my life, but in the lives of others as well. Can you see the power of really connecting with the wounds that sit on our heart? Can you see the incredible healing that it brings when we allow ourselves to connect? Without a process, without a structure, without sometimes some support and guidance, that can be a really hard thing to do. And I understand that because I've been there as well. And even today, I'm still there. I'm still there sometimes. In fact, I was there this week. And so I want to share that I am going to be able to invite some women over the next weeks to come and share their stories. Some of them have said yes, and it's really brave and courageous of them to be willing to do that. And as they share their stories, we're going to be able to hear from them the process they've been on and how it's really brought healing into their heart. When you bring healing into your heart, it's amazing how your heart gets that voice to speak to your thoughts, to speak to your emotions, to speak to your will, your desires, your choices. But when that heart is shut down, unfortunately, that soulish part of us, our mind, our will, our emotions, it really takes control. For me, I found my soul is incredibly bossy, very dominating. It will always try to overshadow my heart voice. It will always try to overshadow my spirit that's speaking to me. And without understanding and without that insight of being able to bring myself into alignment, I really found that I struggled very deeply. Now knowing and understanding that when I have those emotions stirring, when I have all this stuff coming up to the surface, what it needs is to really lean in and listen to that still small voice and let that heart voice rise up and find a way to be heard so that the healing can come into that soulish space. That's the space that needs the healing, and that's the space that comes out of alignment. And when that comes out of alignment, then of course it affects our physical bodies as well. We get sick, we get tired, we get overwhelmed, and it really does affect us all round, body, soul, and spirit. Is that making sense? If you want to talk in the chat, feel free. to let me know what your thoughts are and how you're sort of perceiving this. I'd love to hear. The whole concept of living in alignment is something I have to do daily for myself. When I don't do it daily, I have to say, if I date my journal, this thing here, if I date it and I go, I'm like, oh my gosh, the last week has been awful, I will often see that I haven't been managing this. I go back and the date, yep, it was more than a week ago that I was letting things go and I wasn't staying connected to my heart. It's an intentional, deliberate thing that I know that for me, I need to do. So that whole heart healing is about intentionality. The whole heart healing is about awareness. That whole heart healing is about really connecting with the still small voice, that still small voice that often is crying out, but we've lost connection with it. We've lost the ability to hear it. We've lost the ability to listen to it. And it just takes practice, like any relationship, any healthy connection. We have to learn to listen to the people that we're in relationship with. We have to learn to listen to their voice. We pick up the nuances of what they mean or what they're saying or what they're thinking. So I was thinking, shall I find someone who's willing to go through a heart encounter today on this first day? And I thought, well, that's a bit unfair because I'm asking someone else to do what I need to be willing to do. And so I thought, all right, there is something that's come up for me this week. And so I need to put myself out on the line and be the first vulnerable soul to step in and really allow this process to work in me and share with you what I've done. In the weeks to come, I'm really looking for women who would be willing to go on a bit of a process. Thank you, Sarah. I know I'm really challenged by the fact that I didn't even think to be the first person. That's not very good, but I'm glad that I listened. I listened and I heard. So this is what I'm doing. When stuff stirs up, it's like the agitation. It's leaning in and listening. What is going on? What is happening right here? And so this is what was happening. I'm preparing these workshops. I'm reaching out and wanting women who are hungry for their own heart healing. And I have this big question. Will people even listen to me? Didn't realize there's a bit of a heart wound there. There's a heart wound sitting that's having me question and doubt and maybe even want to pull back from what I need and what I should be doing. So to be able to really spend some time in a heart encounter in a small time frame like we would be on these workshops, this is what I'm going to ask anyone who would like to go through that process to do, because it really helps. If you come with some clarity about what that question is, we won't have to spend an hour talking and figuring that out. So this is what I do. I have a journal that I write in, and what I've done in my journal is I've written out what's on my heart. What are all of these ruminations, these going around, these thinking going round and round and round and round in my head. And so I wrote down what for me was the question, I guess, the challenge. And so I'll just quickly see if it's going to let me share this time, because it was here last night. I wanted to show you. Nope, it's not coming up. So I'm going to quickly see if I can get it back up on my computer. Interesting, isn't it? I'm learning, always learning. Are you always learning? Technology is fun when it works for you. It's amazing. When it doesn't, it's a real pain. I'm just going to go see if I can call this up. There it is. And see if I can share my journal. It just, I want to be, yep, there it is. I want to be able to do this so that for no reason in terms of anything for you to feel sorry for me, but to really help and understand the process that I went on. So I wrote out in my journal, just spilled out this stuff, spilled it out about what I was feeling, about what I wanted to say. Why did I not believe that what I had to say was important? And as I journaled and journaled and journaled, came to the end. It's up to you how long or what process you choose to use. I then went back with a highlighter. As you can see, those green highlighted spots that were words that really leapt out to me. They were kind of like themes that were coming through. So I'll just quickly, what I say isn't important. Felt misunderstood, not being heard, ignored, words used against me, voice not being validated. Had to force my voice to be heard. I had to fight to be heard. I had to have the loudest voice in my family. I grew up one of 5 kids. I had to be loud or rough or pushy. Then I became quiet. But when I became quiet, I started overreacting. I would stay quiet and stay quiet and stay quiet. And then, ping, there went the volcano. A big eruption would happen. Interestingly, when I finished my journaling, what came out of it was that it felt like I was being exposed. Now, this is a really powerful process. This process helps you to really clarify some of your emotions. It helps to clarify what's going on in your soul, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and how these hard issues are coming up. When you can work through those hard issues and start to process them, then you can bring some order. So the thing that I would go on an encounter with myself with is about my voice. Why am I thinking people won't listen to me? Why am I thinking I won't be understood? Why would I think my voice was being used against me? What I did was I chose to be quiet. What was the result? It resulted in me overreacting and choosing to stay in the shadows for a long time, choosing to stay in my comfort zone. Is that making sense? Do I journal every day? No, I don't, but I like to. It would be my absolute goal to be able to journal every day. And the more that I do journal, the more I find I stay aligned. If I don't journal every day, as I said, I make myself put the date up the top, like I did on this particular journal entry. And when I put the date up the top, there it is, 28th, yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? It holds me accountable, because then I can actually see that, have I slipped back because I'm not been connecting with my heart? So as far as the journaling goes for me, it's just that heart connection. It's really connecting with that deep part of me, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Now, when we do a heart encounter, if this process has been done by you, then you'll be able to come to the heart encounter with a lot more clarity about what it is you need healing for. sometimes you might even find that you actually resolve an issue, which is actually really exciting. And more I find that I do that. But I do want to invite those that are willing and hungry to participate in the workshops to be part of that process. If you're willing to take some time and journal, this is what it would look like. And then to go through the process is taking that time to sit with your heart and learn to listen to the still small voice. Your heart is always speaking. It's always asking questions. It's always giving you information. It's just that when we're out of alignment, we're listening way too much to our head. We're listening to what we're thinking. We're listening to what we're feeling. And every feeling comes from a thought. The feelings don't come first. The thoughts come first. Thought, feeling, action. So to be in control of what we do, how we behave, we've really got to get into that soulish realm and bring it into alignment. And that takes a process, it takes a journey, but it's a really exciting one to go on. It actually empowers you, it equips you, it gives you some process and structure to work through that. And as I worked through this for myself, the thing that came out for me was that I had a heart wound from my childhood. In my childhood, like I mentioned, we had to be really loud to be heard. We were a big family, very busy parents. They were doing so many good things, but as a child, it was hard to be heard sometimes. I had to really go in and really speak to that wound and allow some healing to come. And in doing that, I have to say, I feel really good about today. Whereas a few days ago, when this was coming up for me, I was thinking, what the hell am I thinking? What am I doing? But now I got a picture in my encounter of, actually I got a picture of a spotlight, and the spotlight was like shining on a stage. And what I saw was that I was hiding in the shadows. I could see myself in the shadows, and I had not stepped into the spotlight. So that was very confronting for me as well, to see that in actual fact, a lot of the things that I thought were maybe life circumstances were maybe more me just using to validate the choice I was making. But then again, that's another encounter that I've got some work still to do on this to finish it off. So sometimes I can do it on my own. Sometimes I can work through my own encounter for me. But something I say often, almost daily, is that it's much harder to operate on yourself. And when you're starting with this practice, it might take support, it might take guidance, it might take learning how to listen to that still small voice. And so all of those things I want to bring out in the workshops in the weeks to come, to really be able to help you to find that structure and that process, what works for you and how it's going to work to bring healing into your heart space. Heart healing is a very intentional choice. It's a space to step into that does take courage, does take faith, does take intentionality. It's not something that just is going to be caught by chance or luck. It really, truly does take all of those things. As I have been on this journey now for 15 years, and initially it took me 10 years to really get some process and some structure, to get some runs on the board and see in my own life how it was working. Then I was able to bring what I'd learned into a drug rehab, and so I spent 5 years helping actually mums who were addicts recovering in that space of heart healing as well. So that was a pretty good test to actually be able to bring it into a space like that where there was a lot of complexities, not just a happy, maybe normal kind of life, but very dysfunctional life. And to see it work in that space was really, really amazing. One of the girls, one other story just coming to mind now, and I feel it's worth sharing. One of the girls brought a heart wound, a deep heart wound of having had several abortions. And there was so much guilt for her, so much overwhelm. She never felt like she could forgive herself for the choices she'd made, even though back then she did not have the capacity to make any other choice. And as we went on a heart healing journey with her, it was so beautiful how she got an opportunity to really speak to the babies that she'd aborted. And as she was able to even name them and just say sorry, the healing that came to her, she walked away with hope. She walked away free of the shame of what that had brought for her. And unfortunately, these heart wounds don't just sort of impact just that area of our life. They become like this overshadowing thing that impacts so much of our life. That story also touches my heart very deeply as well. It was probably 15 years ago that, or no, not that long, 10 years ago that actually happened. But I still know that girl today. And today she is an entrepreneur, started her own business. Gosh, you know, just amazing when we bring our heart wounds to a place where healing can come, what can actually result, the change it can actually bring into our world. Because when our soul is out of alignment, our thinking, our feelings, our emotions, our choices are out of alignment as well. And when we feel like we have this higher purpose that we're not connecting with, when we feel like there's something more but we just don't know what it is, when we feel like we're stuck in these cycles and we can't seem to break free of them, it's just that we're out of alignment. And so bringing some healing into those spaces and allowing that Holy Spirit voice to really show us and reveal to us, there is so much power, so much freedom, so much blessing in that space